I'm Duane Hatleli. I was born in Alberta, Minnesota in 1932. Um, I was born in a house. I wasn't in a hospital to be born. Fact is, I was born right here on the corner of Hawthorne and Bridge. And then we lived in town for a while, and then my foster grandparents, Grandpa, he died, so we moved out north of Hayward, 4 miles north of Hayward. And I lived there for many years until I got my draft notice to report on December 3rd, 1952. No, 52. I'm sorry. And then we were sent to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, for my basic training, and spent 16 weeks there, and come home for furlough, and then from there on we headed to the West Coast, and I don't remember the name of the.
Fort Lewis.
I don't think I don't know. Maybe it was Fort Lewis, Washington, for just a few days, and then we boarded a ship in Seattle and spent 2 weeks on the water, and we stopped at I forget the name of it. Well, in Japan anyway. We spent the night there, got rid of our khakis and got our fatigues and an M1 rifle, and the next morning we sailed for Incheon, South Korea. They didn't have any docks there, so we had to go on these landing crafts with our duffel bag, and then after we got, and then it's been a long time.
Can you describe for me a little bit more about the landing at Incheon? What did it look like? How did you go and land?
On these landing craft, where the front of the landing craft goes down, and with our duffel bag, and then we was processed, and then I ended up assigned to Company A, 223rd Infantry Regiment, 40th Division, and I was there until about the 1st of July, 1953, and then early that morning, about the 1st of July, Korean outfit come in and took over for us, and they marched us back of the line for one night. And then we just stayed back there for that day. And then the next morning they loaded us on trucks and we took us up to Heartbreak Ridge. And that's where I ended up until July 30th when the ceasefire was called.
What was the date that you went into Korea?
28th of May, 53, I think.
And what was your unit?
Company A, 223rd Infantry Regiment, 40th Division. At breakfast, we down to the mess hall, and of course we had to spread out on the road in case a round comes in. I remember so well. On the July 30th, when a ceasefire was called, in the morning they told us to start carrying ammo out of the trenches. So it was about, I would guess, 11 o'clock, and I was coming with two ammo, what do you call them? Huh?
Boxes.
Well, ammo. But anyway, I got out of the trenches and just going back to the trucks, and shoo, it went, and here was a mortar round that the communists had fired, and I can still see that it landed went over my head and landed down on the road that the engineers had cut out so we could get tanks up there or vehicles. And I dropped my two ammo. What did you? Can't think of it. My two ammo thing, and I got in a real good bunker there for a while, and then it seemed like it was calm out there, so I brought the two ammo. Oh, I can't remember this, but and then we just kept on carrying ammo out of the trenches and didn't have any more problems there. And the next.
So what happened when the mortar round hit?
It hit on the road right down below a little while, and a piece of shrapnel hit me right in the right side, but it never drew blood. So, but I think it was a couple of years that I felt that, where that shrapnel hit. One of them days before the ceasefire, I was in the bunker in the morning trying to get some sleep, but two other buddies were there, and we heard this clunk, and we knew right away it was around it, but it was a dud, and the communists had a lot of duds, they did. And then a couple of nights before the ceasefire, I can't remember how, but anyway, I was elected to go on patrol with, I don't know how many guys, 5, 6, 8 guys, I'm not sure. and we were supposed to make a contact patrol. But, and I don't remember if it was a sergeant, first class, or a second lieutenant that told us, we're not going to go up and make contact. What they do is make contact, fire, and then bug out. And so we spent all night out there in front of the line, and then the next morning we came back up, and our leader, I don't know, it was sergeant or a second lieutenant, but they said, go through this. There was a little creek there. Go and make sure you get it wet so that they think you've done it.
So from the time you landed at Incheon, can you kind of tell me what was your journey? Where were you stationed at one specific place the whole time, or did you move around?
We went to the Punch Bowl and was assigned there. And then about the 1st of July, we were marched back, and a Korean outfit took over for us. And then we was back of the line one night. And then the next day they loaded us on trucks and we took us up to Heartbreak Ridge. And that's where I was when the ceasefire was called. And I got a lot of respect for President Eisenhower, because he negotiated a ceasefire, and he'd only been in office since January. But then when we come, I'll tell you, when we come back on the ship towards Seattle, and hardly any of us got sick, seasick or anything. We were just toughened in, I guess. Well, the guys were so upbeat that we thought we had negotiated, thought it had set the communists back a lot from not letting them into North Korea, or South Korea, I mean. But anyway, then we landed at Seattle, and there we went home. Then I spent my last months in Fort Carson, Colorado, and I even went home and got a car, and we went into Colorado Springs, and some of the people who was with me, they drank too much and got sick. But that's about it.
Can you tell me more about your time at the Punch Bowl?
The Punch Bowl was a little over a month, so. But I was so glad to get out of there because our bunkers were falling down because they weren't. But then I was so glad to get out of there, and the Heartbreak Ridge, we had good bunkers, but they didn't have any rocks and stuff to put on top over here. So.
What were the rocks for?
Well, so when the rounds come in, they'll detonate quicker, and then you're a little bit safer in the bunker. That's what the rocks are for.
At the Punch Bowl, what were your duties?
About every week or so, then your time would come up and say, you got to go on patrol. We went on, I remember, a daylight patrol that we went on. Lucky we didn't run into any communist soldiers, but we stayed out there all day and then come back in.
And when you switched to Heartbreak Ridge, were your duties the same, or did you have new assignments?
We had another guy in our squad was a bazooka gunner, and he was up firing one day, and a sniper got him, and we had flak jackets, and I think they told me he got, when he was firing, a sniper got him right through this on the right side, and so they shipped him back to Japan, I think, and I was next in line to, so I ended up bazooka gunner. And then I'd have to have an assistant, and I only fired it once after the ceasefire, because I didn't need it. But I know the sights on the bazooka were hard to adjust, but they said round, if you could get close enough to a tank, you could knock a track off the tank, but that never happened for me.
Can you describe for me how you operate a bazooka?
A bazooka is two tubes, and they snap together, and then your assistant helps you, and then the assistant hooks up the wire, and then you adjust your sights and pull the trigger when you want it. After the ceasefire, we practiced and we shot one round, but lucky with a ceasefire, I didn't need it. And like I said before here, I'm so grateful that President Eisenhower was able to negotiate. Otherwise, I had probably been dead or wounded real bad. The guys before me, I was so sorry for them that they had to fire and try to get the communists off the hill, and a lot of them died. At that time, they called it police action. You just sit on this hill, and the communists were on another one, but they didn't clash. Except for the communists fired their mortar shells, or maybe artillery, I'm not sure. One day we was having breakfast, I remember, and we could hear these mortar shells, but our own artillery didn't put enough charges on it or whatever. I don't know how they do that, but and it landed short, but beyond the road that we were spread out on to eat.
What did you know about Korea before you were serving?
I didn't know much of it. But in basic training, I remember that's when one guy, he oh, I know, I've seen it on TV, I suppose, or that they, before me, and they were trying to fight in the winter, and people were frozen limbs and just plain cold. They didn't have proper clothing.
So when you were drafted, had you heard about the war very much in the news? What did you know at that time?
I didn't know very much at that time.
So what went through your thoughts when you had your draft notice?
Well, I had to go serve, and at that time I was driving an egg truck, and lucky my dad didn't have a job so he took over for me for 2 years. Then I come back, and I didn't work very long until I'd done something else.
So when did you rotate home from Korea?
Well, it had to be in May of 1954.
So on the day that the armistice was signed, can you describe for me more what was that day like, and what was it like kind of later in the day when you guys got the news?
We was happy and able to load on trucks, and they took us back to where we was going to stay for the rest of our time over there.
How did you personally feel when you heard the news?
Glad that mortar shell didn't hit, and when you're that close to not getting wounded, I was happy, but so it's crazy. I thought I was at that time. When I got out, they put me rank to corporal in Korea after the ceasefire. Got home or went for where we was stationed in one of these big tents, and then we had pretty good place to eat. And she's got the picture there.
What was it like following the signing of the armistice?
Well, Sigmund Rhee was the president of South Korea at that time, and I remember the 40th Division colors were going back to the United States, but a lot of us didn't have our time in yet. I think it was 12 months we're supposed to have. No, on 11 months maybe. But anyway, we had a big parade. We were able to march in front of a lot of brass and Sigmund Rhee. During that time, after the ceasefire, we were all loaded on trucks and said, we're going to go and see Marilyn Monroe. And so she was on stage in the middle of race paddy somewhere, and I never knew it was what. But anyway, we got a picture of there, but we was quite a ways away from Marilyn Monroe. But
So what was your date of discharge from the military?
December 3rd, 1954, at Indian Town. No, Fort Carson, Colorado.
And what was the reception like when you got home?
Nothing. I don't think. A lot of people didn't even know what happened.
What have you done since then?
Well, I worked at driving a cream truck for a few months. Then I worked at DeSoto Produce for I don't know how long. And then I got a job at Queens, King Sealy Thermos Company, Queens. And I worked there for 23 years, I think, until they locked the door and moved south. I think your grandpa worked for Queens for a while. I don't know. I don't think he was in charge when I was started there in 1966.
And what is Korea to you now?
Well, I've seen films of South Korea, and they got skyscrapers and everything. And I got a book from South Korea thanking the soldiers for keeping their freedom, where North Korea is just in a shambles.
And how does it feel to have been a part of, you saw what it looked like when you left and what it looks like today? How does it feel to have been a part of that?
I'm proud of served, and I served to help them out. I remember shortly before we left, we got on a troop train with a steam engine and wooden seats in there, and I forget how long we was on there. But today now they got high-speed trains and that I've seen on film. Quite a change from the old steam engines and wooden seats in the cars.
How do you feel that your wartime experiences have affected the rest of your life?
Well, I've been proud that I served.
What do you feel like you learned through your military service?
Well, respect for other people are.
Do you have any piece of wisdom or a message that you could pass on to younger generations?
I think they had T-shirts here that said, "Freedom is not free."